3 rounds into the NRL season, and we have a very interesting proposition. 3 teams have gone winless in the first 3 rounds, so it now becomes a question of when they will get that first win. Will it be this week? Well, let's find out, shall we? What's going on, guys? It's your boy Burgz back at it again for another week of tips and predictions here on the Casual Athlete. And we have round 4 up on the card this week. But if you haven't already, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. And it's not too late to join our tipping comps, which you can do down in the description below. Now, guys, let's take a quick look at my tips last weekend. And I've got to say, I was hoping for a better week. There were a lot of upsets in round 3. So I tried to take that same vein of form going into this week, but it seems to be 1 week on and 1 week off for upsets, as I did not get too many in this week. I'll speak about the ones that I got wrong. The Panthers Thursday night should have got over the line if Cleary was part of this game for more than 10 minutes of it. I thought the Melbourne Storm were a little bit pathetic in this game. They should have put the Panthers to the sword. They should have beaten them by 20 plus, but they held firm, the Panthers. They stuck it to them, and the young guys really stood up. And, I've got to give credit to them hanging in that game and almost, tying it up at one point or another. And the Storm will now be without Jerome Hughes for a number of weeks due to a broken hand. In the next game, the Roosters really disappointed me, man. They dropped a lot of ball, really wet, slippery conditions over in Auckland against the Warriors. And the Warriors seem to be a threat at home. They have not been beaten so far this year at home. And I know they've only won the 2 games at home, but, it's becoming a bit of a fortress, Go Media Stadium. And the Roosters actually hadn't lost there since 2017. So I think that tells you a lot of work that the Warriors have done in order to prepare for this Roosters team. And this Roosters team is definitely not the same Roosters team that had gone to Auckland previously as well. And then the Dolphins, man, I just think that they are showing their true colours. They're not a good team this season. They don't have it all together. They really lacked a lot of effort towards the end of the game. I think a bomb got put up, and Jack Bostock lost the ball about 5 metres away from the line. And I'm telling you, if the Tigers had have picked it up cleanly, I think Twal knocked it on, they would have scored immediately because there were no Dolphins back there helping towards the end of the game. And it was at a point in the game when it was tied. Everything was on the line, and the Dolphins failed to turn up. And they're not good at playing from behind. They need to be in front in a lot of games, and they were in front in this one as well, and really dropped the ball, couldn't handle it at all, couldn't handle the pressure of being in front. And got to give it to the Tigers, man. They definitely improved on my expectations of them to start this season. So there you have it, guys. 5 out of 8 tips correct. Not a good score, in my opinion, for this week. I know a lot of people who got 6, 7, sometimes even 8 tips correct this week. So 5 was a little bit below par. You want to be hitting that 6 mark each and every week to stay competitive in these tipping comps. And I find a lot of these tipping comps are won in the earlier rounds when you can pick those upsets and get the extra point over your competitors earlier on in the season, because it's much harder to do later on in the season. But anyway, guys, let's move over to round 4 tips. Hopefully, we can get some things going. The first game of round 4 is at Accor Stadium, where we have the Rabbitohs taking on the Panthers. Now, over the last 7 games between these two teams, the Panthers, since the 2021 grand final that was played between these two teams, where the two coaches will meet once again, Wayne Bennett and Ivan Cleary, the Panthers have won 6 out of those last 7 games. So a fair bit of domination there for the Panthers in this fixture. And I've got to say, last week they really impressed me. They didn't have Cleary for 70 minutes of the game. I really thought that Jack Cole stepped up, and Blaise Talangi, yes, he didn't really know what he was meant to do out there. He has to have a little bit more confidence and taking on the line. The best part of his game, like Jerome Luai for them over the last few years, has been that dangerous footwork that he has, and he did not use it enough the other night, and it could have been enough to get them over the line against the Storm. Whereas the Rabbitohs, they're going through a bit of an injury crisis at the moment. They're trying to hold fast, I would say, until they get those players back. And the one team that I think Wayne Bennett needs some revenge on is this Panthers side, and they are struggling right now. Dane Laurie may not play this game. He's dealing with a quad injury. Cleary should have an 11-day cooling off period for that head knock, so he will be out for this game. I expect Brad Schneider to actually come in and play at 7 for the Panthers. We've seen him do it before. Whether he's with Blaze Talangi or Jack Cole seems to be preferred as he is the better defender of the two, is going to be a very interesting thing for me to watch. And I think the Rabbitohs could pounce in this regard if they had better personnel available. They should get Alex Johnston back this week, like he is due back this week. Whether he comes back in or not might be round 5, along with Latrell also being round 5. I think that's when we might see them again. So I think the Rabbitohs are just going to fall short on this occasion, and the Panthers will get a win, 1-12. The second game of round 4 takes place at Allianz Stadium, where the reeling Sydney Roosters will be taking on the mighty Gold Coast Titans, who got a great win last week, but they come into this round playing a team that they do not at all have good success against, and that is the Sydney Roosters. They've won the last 11 games against the Titans. The Titans have not beaten the Roosters since 2016, a very well-documented stat, but what I think we're seeing this year is a very different Roosters side to the one that we have seen possibly since 2016, when they did not have a very good year. And they've made every single final series, the Roosters, since 2016. And last week, they had a very big streak broken by the Warriors. They'd won 9 in a row against the Warriors, and the Warriors broke the streak. That could definitely happen this week with the Titans. The Roosters do not look good right now. Connor Watson left the game last week with a head knock. He should be out for this game. We do not know if Nat Butcher is going to come back. Lindsay Collins should be back from his illness. We also have Celesi Fiketti, who is looking quite good. He is suspended. De La Salva is out. We also have Brandon Smith and Sam Walker still waiting to come back. It is a mess for the Roosters. Let's be honest about that. And this Titans side are big. They are mobile and they are ready to go. I've said it a couple of times on this channel before. I think this Titans side is one of the best forward packs in the competition if they play David Fafita in a starting role. They need to start doing that. They got away with it last week. The Knights were not very good, and the Roosters were not very good last week. So I'm very interested to see how this game shapes up. But let's get on the Titans here. I think they can break the streak, 1-12. Second Friday night game takes place at Suncorp, where we have the derby of all derbies for South Queensland. We've got the Dolphins taking on the Brisbane Broncos. Now, the Broncos had tremendous success against the Dolphins when they first came into the competition. They won their first 3 games against the franchise until August last year, when the Dolphins put 40 points on them, one of the biggest shocks to everyone at the time, that is for sure. Now, this Broncos side, a bit weird to me. They came out round 1, looked like a phenomenal team. Everyone thought they were top 4. And the last 2 weeks, they've sort of come back to earth a little bit slowly. We're still seeing a lot of rocks and diamonds from Reece Walsh. Sometimes I think he is a top 5 fullback in the NRL. And then there are other times where I think he is literally a carbon copy of Tyrell Sloan. Like, he makes some great flashy attacking plays at times, and that's what you want to see out of Reece Walsh. You know, he's effervescent, he's electric, but he also has so many mistakes in his game and just dumb decisions when it comes to attacking the ball when he doesn't need to, when maybe the team is needing a bit of a release of pressure. He adds more pressure, and it doesn't seem to be working for them in a cohesive way right now. He doesn't need to be the guy who does everything out there. He has 2 very experienced halfbacks for that. And Adam Reynolds took the reins on the weekend to get them over the line against the Cowboys. That game was locked up for quite a fair bit of time. And if it wasn't for Adam Reynolds taking over the game, I don't know if the Broncos would have gotten out of that scenario with a win. And I think for the Dolphins, the big question on everyone's lips is this going to be the game where they get their first win of the season? I think they can definitely do it. They're getting very frustrated right now. They're beating themselves in most games. I think every single week they've played so far this season, they've beaten themselves. They haven't really been beaten by the other team. They seem to make mistakes at very crucial times, give away really stupid penalties, and it doesn't contrast to wins. And we've seen that the last couple of weeks. Will they be able to fix it up from week to week? I don't know. But I feel like the Dolphins could get it done. But I'm still going to go the Broncos, 1-12. First game of Super Saturday Round 4 takes us out to Netstrata Jubilee Stadium in Kogarah, where the Dragons will be taking on the Storm. Now, I want to speak about the Storm first of all. I thought they were a little bit embarrassing last week. Penrith kind of pulled their pants down in a way, and I know the Storm won the game, and that sounds a little bit silly for me to say, but to be considered the best team in the competition, you really want to be putting the sword to an understrength side like the Panthers, really shattering the confidence of those young and up and coming players that they do have in Jack Cole and Blaze Talangi. And I think the only thing that they did last week was give Jack Cole and Blaze Talangi a bit of confidence, because they took it to what I consider to be one of the top 3 rosters in the NRL and nearly came away with a victory. I don't know how they did it. And no doubt Melbourne in the second half especially were poor, and they made some really silly errors. But I think if you want to be considered the best team in the competition, you need to start making those dominant victories look good for you rather than getting away with victories. And that's what Melbourne did a lot last year. And I had no confidence going into the grand final with them because they'd won a lot of very close games. And it didn't fill me with a lot of confidence that they could go out there and they could beat anyone. It often looked like a lot of teams could beat them, and then Melbourne just had enough to get there. And that's not what you want to see out of them. For the Dragons, they come off the bye, and teams look genuinely pretty good off the bye. And Melbourne had one last week. I thought they'd be better than they were. But for the Dragons, it's really weird right now. They've got this odd roster of really old middle forwards. It doesn't really work. Then we've got Lachlan Ilias under pressure already. The coach's son is part of the team as well. And sometimes I'm not sure if he's the best number 6 that they should go for. But they did beat Melbourne last year in Melbourne, something that is really hard to do and no one expected it. Do I think they're going to come out with a victory here? No. I'm going to go Melbourne, 13 plus. No, I don't want to talk about the Cowboys right now. The second game of Super Saturday is up at North Queensland, where we have the Cowboys taking on the Raiders. Now, both teams have been pumped by Manly in Brookvale this season, so that is something that these two teams have in common. What they don't have in common is wins against each other, especially over the last 7 games. The Cowboys have dominated this fixture, winning all 7 of the last 7 games, so that fills me with a lot of confidence, and I actually thought that the Cowboys last week weren't completely horrible. And it's bad that that's the positive that I'm taking out of this. I wish I could be a little bit more optimistic about my team, but even before the season, I said our middle forward rotation is not good enough, and dropping a halfback isn't really going to do anything. And to be fair, I was right. Last week, Clifford didn't really add much to the side. I thought his kicking game was maybe a little bit better than Duffy's, but and then the tackling a little bit. But other than that, it didn't really produce a win for us. And, I thought we were terrible in the red zone to start the game. We had all the ball, we had the ascendancy, we had everything going for us, and we didn't score. We actually ended up going into halftime 12-0 down, where we probably should have been 12-0 up. And we managed to get it up to 12 all, and that's nice. But we just once again lacked that defensive intensity, and then being able to keep it up for 60 plus minutes was never going to be a task for us with a guy like Payne Haas on the other team. And that is what I worry about going into this game. The Raiders have one of the biggest forward packs in the competition. I think I've spoken about it at length. Tarpany, Horsburgh, Hudson Young, Matty Nicholson looks pretty good as well. I don't love the matchup. But what I do love is taking the cold weather team who play down in Canberra most of the year up to hot, humid, sunny North Queensland. And that is where we are going to get the win this week. That's right. I am actually going to back the Cowboys to beat the Raiders. I know the Raiders have looked awesome to start the season, aside from last week. But this Cowboys side have shown improvements in recent weeks, and I think that they can get this game done. We seem to be able to play a style that doesn't really fit in with Canberra. We put them off their game quite a lot, and we seem to get a result every single time we've played them since 2020. And I'm going to back them to do it again. Let's go, Cowboys, 1-12. The last game of Super Saturday is out at Shark Park, where the Sharks will be taking on the Bulldogs. And if you had to pinpoint one game from this round that is a must watch, it would be this game. Although the Dogs do have some injury concerns on their side. They will not have Burton for this game. They will not have Kickow. I saw both of those guys out at Para Stadium this week. They had braces and moon boots on. It doesn't look good. It looks very long term. They should get Jacob Carraz back, though, this week, and that is a big in for them. I think they could use a bit of extra punch, especially out of the backfield, and Jacob Carraz is an absolute handful to deal with. And it's such contrasting styles of football. This Bulldogs forward pack, while they aren't big, they are super mobile and they bring the defensive intensity in buckets, man. They go hard at you and they don't let you breathe most of the time. And I think for the Sharks, they really need to be able to weather that storm and find the mental stability to be able to push past it and not let it affect them too early on in the game, because the Dogs can be that niggling team that really puts you off and really throws well-made plans out the window. And I think for a guy like Nico Hines, that kind of style of play can be extremely disruptive. He has like a kind of set plan in his head of what he may be looking to do, and he can be very easily frustrated. And we've seen with the Sharks, they do have a couple of players who can get very easily frustrated. Ronaldo Militalo is one of those guys. Royce Hunt used to be one of those guys. So, it could be a case of the Sharks go down there and they just blow them away. Because I would say that the Dogs' defense hasn't been as good this year as it was last year. It was good against Para, but I mean, Para's Para. But I just think the Sharks have enough points in them to be able to bury the Dogs in this game, and especially being at Shark Park, I think they could get this one done. And this to me is one of the best teams, 1-17 in the competition in the Sharks, especially on paper. But it's about what's up here, not what's out there sometimes. Let's go Sharks, 1-12. We start Sunday round 4 out at Four Pines Park for the Sea Eagles taking on the Eels. Now for the Eels, this is tough. Playing two pretty big rival teams in back-to-back weeks is an emotional experience, especially for fans. I know they didn't have a good time against the Doggies last week, but they were in the game for a lot of it. And I just think if they had more polish in their attack, they probably could have beaten the Dogs. And for Manly, they're so up and down. Like it's super weird because round one they looked like, I would say, the best attacking team in the competition. Then round two came around and you thought, well, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. And then last week they go out and beat an 2-0 Raiders team by 40 points. And you're just like, what Sea Eagles are we going to get week to week? But I think I have a clearer idea about this one. At Four Pines Park, they've put up 82 points in the first two rounds at home. And I expect that to continue this week. The Eels defensively are a bit of a mess right now. I know they're working on a fair few things, and there's a new coach on board, and no doubt Riles is trying to figure out what the best combination is going to be for him moving forward, and even part of this year, especially until Moses comes back, because it's looking dismal at this point in time. And I think Manly should get Turbo back. I think we confirmed that he'll be a starter next week. Although I like Lehigh Hopewadi a lot. He adds a bit of a different dynamic. He's, I would say, quicker, a bit of a leaner body. Probably doesn't break as many tackles as Turbo, but Turbo's the experience man. You got to go with him at fullback, and I expect him to terrorize Parramatta this week. Let's go the Sea Eagles by plenty, 13+. Okay, guys, the last game of the round takes place out at Campbelltown, where we have the Tigers taking on the Warriors. Now, hasn't been a happy fixture for the Tigers, especially since 2019. They've beaten the Warriors just once out of the 9 games that they have played in that time. And both teams will be looking to replace some wingers this week, as Jarrell Skelton went down for the Tigers last week. And then we also have Roger Tuivasa-Sheck down for the Warriors. And both teams got impressive wins last week. I thought that the Warriors, they stuck to their tried and true method, which was let's hold the ball more than their opponent and complete at a higher clip. They are one of the best teams in the competition at completion rate. And that showed on the weekend, especially in some torrid conditions over in Auckland. And for the Tigers, their mid-game turnaround was outstanding last week. I'm not going to take anything away from them. I thought the Dolphins did beat themselves a little bit, but the Tigers are the ones who took advantage, and you can't blame them for doing that, especially when they had some guys playing in some positions that they aren't necessarily used to playing. I think they had Adam Dewey on the wing at some point, probably one of the slowest wingers in the modern game, but he held his own. He did all right, and the Tigers scored 24 unanswered points, and they've become this team that are definitely out of the doldrums. I don't think that they'll be down at the bottom of the ladder this year, which is great news for Tigers fans. And the question now becomes, are they a top 8 side? And you could say the same thing about the Warriors. Like, are they a top 8 side? And I think both of these teams are possibly going to end up in that fringe category of that 8. They could finish 8th all the way down to 12th. And it's really a big judgment. And like the Dogs Sharks game this week, if you had to pick one game to watch this week, I would say the Sunday 6 o'clock game is one to keep on the radar. And as far as the tip goes, man, do I go against the Tigers 4 weeks in a row? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's go Warriors. Campbelltown isn't a happy hunting ground for the Tigers. Warriors, 1 to 12. So guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it. Let me know your tips down in the comments section below. It isn't too late to join our tipping comps, so make sure that you hit the link down in the description and make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any of our latest content. And I'll catch you on the next one.